Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is Game 3 from the 2023 World Chess Championship match. Nepomniachtchi has the white pieces in this one and is leading in this match 1.5-half. Move 1, d4, caught Ding Liren by surprise as he shared in the press conference. He was expecting Nepomniachtchi's main weapon, e4. Okay, knight f6, c4, e6. Knight c3, welcoming the Nimzo-Indian defense. We may see this in future games in this match, but not in this game 3. Instead, it's the Queen's Gambit declined with d5, exchange variation, positional line, bishop g5. This is a line that Ding Liren is very familiar with. He had played a game against Anish Giri in May of 2022, and we follow that very game up until move 17. That's where it deviates. In that game against Giri, he was playing the black pieces, so he's very familiar with this line, to be sure. Now, in this line, we're noting a lag with the king-knight, not yet making a commitment. Why is this? Let's see. Some eye on e4 with the queen, so too with the rook. It's also half-open file. Where is that king-knight going? e2. Normally, the king-knight goes to f3, its favorite square. Why is he going to e2? Well, within this structure, white keeps open the option to expand in the center. This is another plan. Another plan besides the minority attack is now a central expansion with the knight on e2 rather than f3. If he's on f3, there is no pawn going to f3. Okay, two plans in short now for white. From here, knight b to d7, kingside castles, a5, a3, offer of a dark square bishop exchange. May seem a little bit weird to play in this way. Knight is on the edge. Is it really worthwhile to, in a way, demote the knight? It's justified because after bishop takes bishop, black is doing what? Recapturing and developing a new piece. Okay. From here, rook a to e1. Clearly, white is gunning for the central expansion. Now, what I would like to touch on is the other plan, briefly. The minority attack. I have a pop quiz I'd like to throw your way. Suppose white went with rook a to b1. And this knight comes back into the ballgame. And b4 is in there, a, b, a, b. Pop quiz. How would you react to, well, what move would you play here as black? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, the best move is b5. Stopping white from playing b5, and controlling c4 for a second time with a pawn. Why is this a good idea? Well, this knight is now next going to look to hop into that weakest square in white's camp. This is an excellent way to follow up. So I just wanted to highlight this. This is another plan white could go forward with, the minority attack. This would be an excellent way to respond to it. Okay, in this game, it's rook a to e1. Knight f8. Before you can play f3, you need to defend e3. So the knight gets out of the way. Runs in reverse. Now, one of the things I questioned was, why not move forward? Is it really so bad to take on this structure? This group of 5 pawns, you are taking towards the center. Is this instance of double G pawns really that bad? Well, yes, if your intention is to continue with the central expansion, because after queen d6, it's now not so easy to get these moves in, is it? With the queen on d6, she keeps a watchful eye over g3. That would be weakened. That would fall after f3. So we don't have knight g3, he gets out of the way, goes to c1. From here, knight f6, f3, sure enough, knight e6. White's pretty much always going to be able to add enough supporters over the e4 advance, so it's important in playing playing on the black side to have another square besides e4 in mind. What might another square be? Well, d4. The knight is keying in on that square. That is a point that will be weakened once e4 is in there. White can't play e4 right now because of knight takes d4. So there's some pressure you can be placing on d4 to try and prevent the central expansion plan. Okay. Now, in Ding Liren's game against Anish Giri, Giri in this position, on this move 17, played queen f2, adding some support over d4. In this game, Nepomniachtchi goes with knight 1 to e2. Okay, there's no longer this pressure against e3 with the knight on e6. From here we have c5. Now, this increases the pressure on d4. These last two moves by black are keying in on this point, to be sure. It's not necessary to play in this way as black, and this line I'm about to highlight I found very instructive. I'm going to make a move that's sort of passing, rook to b8. I say sort of passing because the computer is actually considering this move as purposeful. There's some line with b5, b4, and the rook is doing something useful from b8, but let's just say rook b8 is played, and white goes ahead and says, okay, I have enough support for e4, let's play e4. e4 is not a good idea. Why is that? Well, it's because black has a quiet move a couple ply from now. After d takes e, f takes e. This is the way to recapture. This is white's idea with the central expansion to keep this, or to form this ideal pawn center, to look forward to driving the knight away with a pawn, to open up the f-file. What's the problem with this? The problem is that black could target d4. The queen gets to go home. And what is white doing exactly in this position about the pressure on d4? There isn't a good way to defend that. Black will soon be winning a pawn. What does this mean? Well, be careful about playing e4. d4 can be a target. Okay. c5 in this game. From here, bishop b5, rook d8, d takes on c, queen takes c. There's some pressure on e3, queen d2, and bishop d7 in this game. There is also a central break with d4, which doesn't really get us anywhere. Let's have a look at it. If d4 is in there, we would have some knights exchanged and queens exchanged. Rook takes may seem appealing, setting up a discovered check, but there's a convenient reaction. Queen f2, and black is maybe the one that has to be a little bit careful, being in a pin currently. Okay. What would end up resulting is something like this, and what's basically happening is we're going from a middle game with a structural imbalance to no imbalance, and now we're in an ending. It is very much tending towards a draw. The bishop will soon assume a very strong post on e6. We don't really get anywhere with the d4 break. In this game, it's bishop d7, bishop takes bishop, and now a move Nepomniachtchi probably didn't expect, and that is the recapture with the knight. This is a best move And the clock times give us some insight here. Nepomniachtchi on his next move spent 13 minutes, and then on his next move, 11 minutes. Knight recaptures, and it seems like this guy is up for grabs, but it's pretty much poison. There's a couple of ways it could be captured. Let's have a look at both of them. First, let's go with the queen takes. If queen takes, this is how black can reply. Capture on e3, and then follow with knight d to c5, defending b2, attacking the queen. Black is better, slightly better in this position, has the better positioned knights, is the one that has just generated a threat. White has to react to this. Okay, I think the knights are the main thing that stick out to me here. This is why black is better. This guy also interferes with this rook one day getting to the second rank, whereas this rook, still has access to getting to the second rank. All right, this would not be a good idea for white to take the pawn with the queen, and even worse than taking with the queen would be taking with the knight. This would be losing because knight b6 is in there, and this knight is in a pin, and white cannot defend it. There is no e4. That pawn is pinned. So basically a poison pawn, and this knight, I should mention, from f6, if black is recapturing on d7 with the rook, this knight is, how to describe it? It's developed, but it's out of play. It's under control by this pawn alone. It's soon going to become a best piece, though. By recapturing on d7, it's now looking at c4. And from this post, what a pest. Exerting pressure on the base point, b2, e3. Not easy to defend. Tricks right around the corner with the knight on c4. White has to be careful. As Ding Liren expressed in the press conference, he felt he was playing for a win around this point in the game. From here, rook e to d1, knight c4, queen f2, and now rook a to c8, activating that last piece. Now, one move to test here, one move that he was certainly considering, he spent about 8 minutes on this last move, rook a to c8, a line he must have been calculating instead of rook a to c8 is knight takes a3. This pawn is overloaded. If you take the knight, this guy falls. Soon this guy may fall. Black is up a pawn. What would white's reaction be? What would white's reply be to knight takes on a3? There's only one good move for white, and the move is e4. And this is putting more pressure on d5 and threatening to exchange knights and exchange queens, and then we're ready to win a piece. If there's no queens on board, black isn't able to meet b takes a with queen takes knight. So for example, after e4, if black were to take on e4, we could take on e6. Something has to be done here. We get a queen exchange in. Black recaptures this guy, and there we go. White is up a piece. White is winning. So the best continuation after e4 would be something like knight takes d4, rook takes d4, knight c4, knight takes d5. This is considered an equal position. There are some other variations, but my main point is that there is a key move white has in response to knight takes a3, and it's e4. Okay, in this game, rook a to c8, knight a4, queen e7. It may seem tempting to bring the queen to a7. It's an okay move. You know, she maintains pressure on the center, maintains pressure on e3, coordinates well, you might say, with both knights. But in a way, she feels a little bit offsides, not as central, to be sure, from a7. And maybe, you know, in my view, she's kind of functioning only as if she's a bishop. Okay. The queen goes to e7 in this game, stays more central, and eventually pivots after rook f to e1, a small improvement for white. She pivots on f6. She's definitely functioning like a queen, still targeting the knight, just from a different angle. More central is the big thing. From here, knight b5. This knight is challenged. We could have an exchange. We're not really going anywhere in this position. There's two weak pawns here, but you know, they sort of balance each other out. We have no knight exchange in this game. It's ducked. White goes back to d4. Black challenges it. You see where we're going with this one? We end up having a repetition of position in this game. After knight back to e6, this is a threefold repetition, and this game ends as a draw. If play were to continue, you know, this is a draw, I think, for Ding Liren, you know, from a position of strength in a way. He's the one that could maybe go for something more if he wanted to. I'm not saying that this is getting black anywhere, but there is maybe some play left with b5 and b4. Not sure. After b3, knight c3, what is black really gaining from this? I'm not sure, but if if black wanted to continue, he could maybe try for something, but at this stage, he was clearly satisfied with a draw. We ended up having the knight simply going back and forth. No knight exchanges in this third game. This one, in the end, ends up turning out peacefully. So, where does that put us? Nepomniachtchi with 2, Ding Liren at 1, going into game 4. Let's have a look at the tail of the tape on this one. We could see that these guys are playing very machine-like. That is quite the flatliner. Not a single inaccuracy, mistake, or blunder by either side. Identical accuracy here. Identical average centi-pawn loss, 97% accuracy. So super high-level play in this game 3. I think this was an excellent result for Ding Liren, holding with the black pieces, recovering from that very difficult defeat in game 2, 29 move loss. So we will see what happens in game 4 soon enough. Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it, and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.